Warriors 114-111. The Thunder beat the Suns 125-112. The Nuggets over the Kings 124-116. The Clippers beat the Rockets 134-117. The regular season ends this Sunday. The play-in round starts on Tuesday. In the East, Chicago trying to hold on to 9th place. In the West, the Lakers trying to lock in 3rd. The Clippers have won 6 in a row and are just a game behind them. Golden State's 2 games out. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes 2.
1 to change the light bulb, and 1 to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is a Thursday on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. It is FFC. It is a Thursday, officially 2 weeks out from the opening round of the 2025 NFL Draft. 2 weeks from today, 2 Thursdays from now. Thursday, April 24th, 2025 in Green Bay, Wisconsin. First round, first night in Titletown. We will look at the updated NFL draft odds for all 32 teams and everything that we are seeing for the 2025 NFL draft. We'll talk other news around the National Football League, some college football conversations on this Thursday as well. Lisi, a lot to dive into here over this hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, and this is where you start to see, I want to say, positioning of certain types of stories. I've heard, and read the report that Cleveland might pull off a blockbuster trade and potentially get Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, just the way C.J. Stroud and obviously, they did a couple of years ago with the number 2 and number 3 overall picks. Will Anderson, that's it. I got basketball players on my mind from gambling. That's what it is. But I can't tell you. I tell you, Michael Porter Jr. last night with a big night. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Pounds, baby.
But that's the rumors that you're starting to see. And I've been watching, the film and all the analysts and the gurus, Mel Kiper. He has Shedeur over Cam Ward. All of a sudden, Danny O is pumping up, Jackson Dart and saying that he's a first-round pick and he could go maybe top 10 all of a sudden. So this is the type of smoke and mirrors that you get with about 2 weeks left before draft day. And we'll be there to cover it, obviously, for SportsGrid, but we'll see what transpires. I think, it's obvious that Cam Ward, according to the odds market, will be number 1 overall, but number 2 and number 3, and potentially a team outside the top 10, like Pittsburgh, like another team potentially, I'll just throw it out there, like the Rams, could be on the move in the top 15.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, Joe. And that's actually where we start, because where we stand right now, 2 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft, all 32 NFL franchises have their originally slated number 1 pick. They have their original opening round selection. Joe, it is the only time in the modern league era, that's since the merger, but especially since the NFL draft became 7 rounds back in 1994, and the NFL added its 32nd franchise back in 2002, that all 32 organizations hold their original first round pick. The only time that has happened into the league year, which began back in the middle of March. It is astounding to see this little, virtually zero movement in terms of the draft order. But of course, there has been some movement in the draft odds. Number 1 overall, the Tennessee Titans hold that pick at this moment. And Joe, it seems all but official that the Titans are going to use that first overall selection on the Miami quarterback in Cam Ward. But that wasn't always the case. He wasn't some predisposed number 1 overall pick for multiple years like a Trevor Lawrence or like a Caleb Williams even as recent as a year ago. On the opening week of the Combine in late February, about a month and a half ago, Cam Ward was minus 120, minus 135 to go first overall. He is now minus 20,000. Again, Joe, it's almost like we are just awaiting confirmation 2 weeks from now that Cam Ward will hear his name called before anybody else to become the new quarterback of the Titans.
Yeah, most likely, right? I mean, 99.9% that'll be the case. And I think that, Tennessee was in a position where, we talked about it, that they had to pull the trigger, or they have to pull the trigger on a possible franchise quarterback because of how they swung and missed with Malik Willis and Will Levis respectively. But that being said, I think the fact that they maybe, shopped around and heard offers, it's not as deep of a class as we had last year with Caleb and Jaden Daniels, number 1 and number 2, that, maybe there was a team potentially in the move or in the market for Cam Ward. And if a team was, let's just say, going to offer a veteran quarterback that could plug and play, it's something to potentially, from a business standpoint, at least shop around, right? Once you realized or realized that it wasn't worth the risk or the value and you weren't getting what you were asking, I think then they made it out there that there's no doubt they're taking Cam Ward, and that's what they should do. So, it was a smart move to at least maybe potentially shop it around.
Sure.
And that's why we were seeing the minus 120. But as we inch closer, and once those deals didn't come to fruition, they then made it known that they're taking Cam Ward number 1 overall.
And a new regime, right? In Nashville, led by new GM Mike Borgonzi. Brian Callahan enters his second year. And Borgonzi said, Joe, entering Combine Week, when he was introduced as the new general manager after the end of this previous football season, that he was going to listen to any potential trade interest, as Lisi alluded to. But it always struck me as, well, if you're trading up the draft board, you're trading up there to get a quarterback. And to me, Cam Ward has always been quarterback number 1 in this draft class. We'll talk more quarterbacks a little bit later on. So the Titans, more than likely, minus 20,000 right now for Cam Ward to be that first overall pick. Again, the caveat, that is always the caveat. If you are betting draft odds, it's not that Cam Ward has to go number 1 overall to Tennessee, just that Cam Ward hears his name called before everybody else. At this moment, though, we expect Tennessee, the team that is currently drafting first, to be the team that takes Cam Ward 1 of 1. Joe, it's right behind Cam Ward where a lot of that draft market begins. I do want to ask you a question quickly on the Titans. Year number 2 under Brian Callahan, who, of course, is entering his second season, an offensive-minded head coach. We didn't really get a true picture of what the Titans could be, but they ended up being the worst covered team ever in the history of the NFL. 2-15 against the spread, 3-14 straight up. He was the former OC in Cincinnati. Part of that offensive scheme designed for Joe Burrow to have success, and then he got hired in the 2024 offseason. Lisa Guy, if you add Cam Ward to what the Titans currently have on the roster, Tennessee's team win total is 5.5 entering 2025. Do you feel optimistic at all about what the Titans are going to present?
No, and I did this with Scott the other day. Part of it's the schedule. The other part is the offensive identity, right? And to your point about Brian Callahan, it's easy to call plays when you have one of the best quarterbacks in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins at your disposal, and even for years with Joe Mixon and obviously Chase Brown, right? So it's a lot different when you look at the offensive identity with two basically, I want to say, average quarterbacks. Of Will Levis is under average and turnover prone, and what Mason Rudolph had. They only had one, I guess, maybe pure number 1 in Calvin Ridley, and putting him up like against the likes of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, or some of the others like C.D. Lamb and A.J. Brown, not even close, right? So what is the offensive identity? Are they a run-heavy team like they were with Derrick Henry and Mike Vrabel, or are they more a 5 wide? You don't know that until you have the quarterback in place. So Cam Ward gives them that option, but I would still sell it under the 5.5 because of schedule and knowing that what is the growing pains with Cam Ward, expecting him to be there like Jaden Daniels. That's a tough ask in year one.
That is the expectation, though, right? For any quarterback drafted in the first round, certainly in the top 5, especially number 1 overall. You are the face of the franchise, not just for the expected future, but right from the very jump in week number 1, especially because the Titans don't really have much left on the roster outside of Will Levis. Cam Ward is going to be that guy, more than likely under Brian Callahan, for a Titans offense that ranks 6th worst around the NFL in scoring a season ago, just 18.3 points per game. Now we'll get that true picture. And Joe, I do think there is a chance, if it doesn't work out in 2025 under Callahan for Cam Ward, Callahan is sent packing entering year number 3. We'll see what the head coach has for the Titans moving forward. How about those moving draft odds for 2nd and 3rd overall picks? We'll talk about it up next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that 5. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Microsoft said it is slowing or pausing some of its data center construction. This includes a $1 billion project in Ohio. The tech giant confirmed that it is halting early-stage projects on rural land it owns in central Ohio's Licking County outside of Columbus and will reserve 2 of the 3 sites for farmland. 4 people were charged in connection with a shooting that killed 3 people and wounded 3 others in Virginia. Spotsylvania authorities say in a statement that all 4 suspects, 2 16-year-olds, a 17-year-old, and an 18-year-old, were charged with malicious wounding and felony firearm use. 3 of the suspects were arrested Wednesday morning. On Wednesday, President Trump announced a 90-day pause on most of his new tariffs and a lowering of the reciprocal tariff rate to 10% effective immediately. The president, however, said he is increasing the tariff rate on goods imported from China to 125%. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Something amazing is happening. Despite a citywide blackout, this company is still up and running. That's because CDW deployed and managed a cost-effective Eaton Trip Light Series Smart Pro UPS to safeguard equipment easily and reliably. Keep the power on and protect your IT equipment from electrical challenges. Triplight by Eaton and CDW. Make amazing happen. Find out more at cdw.com/triplight.
With Progressive Snapshot, you could save on auto insurance rates by driving safely, which is nice because you can just keep doing you. So keep on using that broken phone charger because it occasionally works. Keep quoting something you heard on a podcast as your own. Keep ignoring your sister's texts while you drive and after. And when baggage claim says, have a great trip, keep on saying, you too. And keep driving safely. And you could save with Snapshot from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents. Surcharge possible for unsafe driving.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
2 weeks out from the 2025 NFL Draft, we let you know where the market stands and what the overall consensus is, with a lot of speculation, smoke, and, of course, time to fill in the next 14 days before we get to the opening round of the 2025 NFL Draft. Again, Cam Ward, a minus 20,000 favorite to be that first overall pick. We were just talking about Cam Ward, what he would mean for Tennessee, and what the Titans' expectations would be entering 2025. Win total for Tennessee at 5.5. The over has a bit of juice at minus 135. Lacey, like you shade the under. If I even lean over for the Titans in 2025, it's probably just at 6. Certainly no better than 7. I do not expect the Titans to be a playoff team in 2025 with Cam Ward as the starting quarterback in the second year under new head man Brian Callahan.
Yeah, I think part of it too, Ben, is winnable. I don't want to say winnable division because that's huge expectations, right? But we're not a dominant. We're not talking about the AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs that has won it, 7 straight years. Houston is the best team on paper. Jacksonville has a first-year head coach. Indy's up and down with quarterback issues. So you can never say never. Maybe they can win 2 games in the division. But that's still a huge ask. And you look at the products that they have. They have Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley at the wide receiver position, Tajay Spears, and obviously Tony Pollard. What is the identity? I mean, Cam Ward's going to come in, and we're expecting him to what? Have Jaden Daniels type numbers and C.J. Stroud type of numbers without an elite wide receiver core and an elite running back. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, again, I'd be shocked if they have 5 wins. I think this is a similar situation, unfortunately, to what Bryce Young had in his first year in Carolina.
Could be, Joe. And again, I think if it is a bad year, 4-13, maybe heck, even 5-12 in Nashville this year, that Brian Callahan is shipped out. Because again, Callahan was not the head coach when the GM, Mike Borgonzi, was hired. Oftentimes, you think about the 3 most important positions within an NFL organization, GM, head coach, quarterback, all wanting to and oftentimes needing to be aligned. Well, the GM would be there to draft the quarterback first overall, but the head coach kind of sandwiched in between, not necessarily there for when Borgonzi arrived. Would there be a change coming? I do think that is a possibility, Joe. The seat probably already pretty warm in Tennessee for Callahan, despite being a head coach for just 1 season. So Cam Ward has always been the favorite, at least in this draft process, to go first overall. He is now a super strong favorite at minus 20,000. Joe, the betting odds that we have seen drastically shift in the last week, that's been at 2nd overall and 3rd overall. Late last week, it was Abdul Carter, a minus 270 favorite to be that 2nd overall selection. Now it's Travis Hunter, the reigning Heisman winner, at minus 310 to go 2nd overall. That's where the Browns are picking right now. At number 3 overall, it was Travis Hunter minus 185 to go to the New York Giants. Now it's minus 170 for Abdul Carter. They did a flip-flop in those odds, and who was the minus money favorite? 2 weeks out from the draft. Joe, does that make sense for you? Travis Hunter at number 2 to Cleveland, Abdul Carter number 3 to New York.
Well, again, I mean, does it make sense? I mean, if I'm Cleveland, I'm taking Shedeur Sanders, but that's just me because of where they're at in terms of quarterback purgatory with Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett. So I would take Shedeur Sanders. Does Travis Hunter elevate that team more than Abdul Carter? Possibly, because again, you couple him with Jerry Jeudy on some plays from an offensive perspective. Now you have some weapons for whoever starts at the quarterback position, right? Again, no Nick Chubb potentially. Jerome Ford is there. Njoku. You have some weapons, but you need to move the football through the air. And the only quarterback that could do that, it seemed like, was Jameis Winston. Love him or hate him. So that's the problem. With Abdul Carter, they're not moving from like 3 or 4 wins to like 9. They're just not doing it. They need offensive help. And even though Travis Hunter's an elite corner, you could potentially get something out of the tank from an offensive perspective. It's a bang for the buck at number 2. Yeah. So if you're not taking quarterback, I would take Travis Hunter if I'm Cleveland.
Yeah, and Joe, it does seem to make sense, right? You just paid Myles Garrett $40 million per year. If you are not investing in a quarterback, and there has been zilch indication that Cleveland is even considering a QB at 2, more than likely that would be Shedeur Sanders. You don't really need Abdul Carter on the opposite edge. You could have a dominant defensive line, but you're investing a lot in only one position for Cleveland. So go out and get the versatile Travis Hunter, who will probably be involved in the offense in some form or fashion, but is an elite lockdown corner.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, too, we saw the move, with Vrabel and the Patriots moving on from Joe Milton. If I'm Cleveland, why don't you make that move? Or why don't you pull the trigger on potentially Joe Milton, right? A raw quarterback to potentially get him in camp. Maybe then you have something outside of him and Kenny Pickett could compete for a starting job this year. And then now you have Travis Hunter potentially number 2 overall. I mean, why would you pass up on that type of situation as well? Just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't actually mind the look at Kenny Pickett, right? You only gave up a 7th rounder for him. Again, it's not the answer at the quarterback spot by any means. I don't know if Joe Milton is either. Kevin Stefanski gets a lot of credit for elevating quarterback play. He has won Coach of the Year twice with Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco. Can he do that with a Kenny Pickett? Could he have done it with Joe Milton? I'm not entirely sure. But, Joe, what it says to me is when you look at, I'm going to pass it back to you right now, Lisi.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about Cleveland and their quarterback situation in terms of now with Deshaun Watson, Kenny Pickett, and what they're dealing with potentially in terms of the number 2 overall draft with Travis Hunter. What does Travis Hunter bring that team from a versatility perspective? He brings the ability to play from an offensive perspective, coupled with those wide receivers right now, Jerry Jeudy. If you get competent quarterback play from Kenny Pickett, Travis Hunter could be a huge addition to that offense in 2025. We'll see how it plays out. NFL draft on the horizon, just about 17, 18 days away. We'll be right back with AFC and NFC odds right here on Football Full Circle.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1913, the New York Highlanders play their first major league game as the New York Yankees. Since 1923, the Bombers have won 27 World Championships.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
In pro sports, only the Montreal Canadiens have come close with 25 championships. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
New University of Ottawa research says if you're a member of the Polar Bear Club and like to take a dip in the ocean during sub-zero weather, you might actually be extending your life. This study finds acclimating your body to repeated exposure to immersion in cold water for an hour over 7 days supercharges cellular resistance, the body's natural mechanisms cleaning out damaged tissue. If you want to try this for yourself and you're not quite ready to jump into the Arctic Ocean, maybe just try a cold shower. Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
Why does he get SGA's a pig. He's a pig, SGA. He takes every shot. What do you want from the guy?
Can't do that. I can't do that.
He's a team player. Likes to spread the ball around. Got other mouths to feed. SGA's a pig.
Here he is.
Doesn't care about that.
I didn't realize I'm doing the show with Phil Jackson. The Zen Master's in the house.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Weekdays 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you. So now you can get the winning edge anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you. If you got an earbud. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
So this is where the NFL draft gets fun in 2025, 2 weeks from right now, at number 2 and number 3 overall. The Browns, more than likely, as the odds makers expect right now, going to select Travis Hunter with a minus 310 price. Hunter is the pretty hefty favorite to go second overall, which means Abdul Carter is the slotted in minus money favorite at minus 170 to be the third overall pick made by the New York Giants. Always the caveat, of course, that we add in for draft discussions. It does not necessarily have to be the Browns taking Travis Hunter for you to cash that ticket that he goes second overall. But every NFL team at this moment, all 32 clubs, hold on to their original first round pick. As we were highlighting, Joe, right before the break, it would make sense if Cleveland is not invested in a quarterback to look at Travis Hunter, the very versatile athlete and, of course, an elite cornerback. He wants to hear Roger Goodell, by the way, announce him as Colorado wide receiver cornerback when his name is called in Green Bay up on the stage. I think that's what the Browns are going to do with the second overall pick, which I think Giants fans should be thrilled by at number 3 overall, because I believe the best overall prospect in this draft class, including the importance of a quarterback, but just best football player top to bottom, for me, that's Penn State's Abdul Carter and what he can do to wreck and impact a game. So at that third overall pick, as the Giants have already made their offseason moves at the QB spot, I think Abdul Carter and Giants fans should be salivating to get him in-house.
Yeah, and think about it, you pair him with Thibodeau on the opposite end. You have, obviously, Dexter Lawrence in the middle. You have a formidable front seven that could get after mobile quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Dak Prescott when healthy, right? And that's what you have to do to at least compete from a defensive perspective in the NFC East. Again, we go back to this. Yes, Abdul Carter for the Giants makes sense. Does it move the needle to get the organization any closer to potentially an NFC East title this year is the biggest question, because I think, if you're just talking big picture, they should go with Shedeur, but they can't do that now with the money and just the free agent capital that they've taken on with Jameis and Russell Wilson. So they've already made their decision. They're moving on with free agent quarterback and hopefully a dominant defense to compete. Does that get it done? It might. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they have an elite wideout in Malik Neighbors. They have a very good running back in Tyrone Tracy. And Penn State players have translated well to the next level, especially in New York. So we'll see how it plays out, Ben.
Yeah, Alicia, I think it's a great point, right? When the Giants kind of squandered the opportunity to draft first overall and fell to 3, and it seemed as though they were even out of the Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes, they were going to kick the can down the road till next offseason to address the quarterback of the future. There's a great chance drafting 3 overall that Shedeur Sanders is there come 2 weeks from tonight, but it seems as though the Giants have gone another way, that Shedeur Sanders is not checking the boxes they need for a future franchise quarterback, right? The 2-year, $8 million deal on Jameis Winston, the 1-year, $21 million deal, and the investment in Russell Wilson. It seems as though the G-men have found their quarterback room for this year, but kicking the can down the road can only work maybe for the future. It might not work for the future of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, which has always made what the Giants are going to do with that third overall selection all that much more fascinating. To get a guy like Abdul Carter, I think, is a can't-miss pick for New York. But again, does it really move the market? Perhaps not. Joe, I think the second most important position in today's current landscape of football, outside of a quarterback, in truly impacting and taking over a game, is a dominant defensive lineman, is an edge rusher. And I think Abdul Carter can be that in his NFL career, right? The 2 other highest paid guys outside of a wide receiver or a quarterback in the history of the NFL, Max Crosby and Myles Garrett, both game-wrecking edge rushers. But I don't think Abdul Carter makes a Giants team on the precipice of a 6 or 7 win season, an 8 and 9 win team that could contend for the playoffs. In fact, Joe, the 3 teams drafting 1, 2, 3, Titans, Browns, Giants in that order, all have a win total of 5.5 for the 2025 NFL season. The Titans, in fact, the only team that have juice on the over. Browns, Giants, pretty hefty juice on the under of that win total of 5.5.
Yeah, and I think part of it's that division, right? We talk about the AFC South as a whole for Tennessee and what you have in terms of the AFC North for Cleveland and obviously Philadelphia, Dallas, and Washington in the NFC East. I think that's the discrepancy right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Joe. It seems the AFC South a little bit up more for grabs than the other 2 divisions we just mentioned. Where does Shedeur Sanders go? And who does he visit with today? Next.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Baseball Wednesday in 13 innings. The Pirates beat the Cardinals 2-1. The Marlins shut out the Mets 5-0. The Yankees cut by the Tigers 4-3. That snapped Detroit's 5-game winning streak. The Rangers beat the Cubs 6-2 at Wrigley Field. The Padres 2-1 winners over the A's. The Diamondbacks shut out the Orioles 9-0. Brandon Pfaadt allowed 4 hits over 6 full. In 10 innings, the Giants beat the Reds 8-6. They rallied from a 6-1 deficit in the 6th. The Giants had lost 2 in a row. The Dodgers got by the Nationals 6-5. The Mariners over the Astros 7-6. The Guardians beat the White Sox 3-2. In 11 innings, the Blue Jays over the Red Sox 2-1. Tampa beat the Angels 5-4. The Phillies 4-3 winners at Atlanta. The Twins shut out the Royals 4-0. The Brewers pounded the Rockies 17-2. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
At Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Wait. Skechers put the S in comfort?
Yes, comfort you have to feel to believe. Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Let me try. Okay, I'm just stepping in and... Oh, wow. Skechers put the S in comfort.
Duh, we told you.
Find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
You're listening to SportsGrid, spreading the winning edge far and wide. Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app. Face it, the winning edge is everywhere. Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Lisi guy, as of this Thursday afternoon, the Pittsburgh Steelers are hosting Shedeur Sanders on a visit in the Steel City. Of course, that is notable, seeing that Pittsburgh could be approaching the NFL draft looking for a quarterback. Why that is interesting is because if he does visit Pittsburgh today, how does that change the Steelers' draft plans, if at all? At least 4 of the Steelers' top 30 draft visits have been or will be with a quarterback, including Shedeur Sanders today. They've already hosted Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart. They will host Kyle McCord from Syracuse next week as well. But, Joe, we have talked a lot about the team that is likely to draft Shedeur Sanders and those prices. We talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mentioned I bet that number as soon as I could in New Jersey at a 9-1 price. But it opened at 17-1. Quickly moved to 15-1. I bet it at 9-1 now over a week and a half ago. Lisa guy, for Shedeur Sanders to be selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers, now the second best price on the FanDuel Sportsbook at plus 210. Less than $1.50 behind the New Orleans Saints, who are the favorites right now to select Shedeur Sanders at plus 270.
Yeah, I mean, again, you talk about quarterback-needy teams, and we just talked about it the other day, and we broke it down. It's New Orleans, Pittsburgh, maybe the Rams, and maybe Minnesota, and then obviously the 2 ones that we know about in the top 3 in terms of Cleveland and New York, which have made it known that potentially they're not taking them. Now, is it window dressing to potentially surprise everybody? It's possible, to see if maybe a team like Pittsburgh reaches up and gets into the top 5. I mean, that's accepted. I mean, here's the thing. If you're Pittsburgh, right, and you have that bet, Ben, it's like, okay, based off of what we know now, he's not going in the top 5, right? Because if it's Travis and Abdul, 2 and 3 overall, we know that 4 and number 5 are staying pat with Jacksonville and New England. And then the Raiders look like they're going to go with Ashton Genty So then we have to worry about 9. So if you're the Steelers and you're sitting back and all of a sudden you hear that New Orleans has moved up from 9 to 4, you're screwed. Right? So that's where you lose that bet. So does Pittsburgh, overexceed and jump the gun and say, you know what? We have to make a trade with Cleveland or the New York Giants to get into the top 3. That's where it becomes interesting, because right now you have a great bet on your hands, but you don't know what transpires and where teams get a little impulsive or impatient to potentially jump up into the top 5. So for me, if I'm taking that bet, meaning what you took, I would be safer, meaning pulling the trigger at Shedeur Sanders top 5, which I believe is like 2-1 or 3-1 in that aspect.
Plus 200 for Shedeur Sanders to be a top 5 pick. It was plus 145 when this market opened up, which tells me, Joe, that Shedeur Sanders is on a small slide. I do not believe, however, that I'm going to cash my bet at number 21 overall, which is where Pittsburgh currently is slated to pick. I'm not entirely sure what the thought process is for the Saints. It would make logistical sense for Shedeur Sanders to go 9th overall to New Orleans. They have not invested in a quarterback in the last few off seasons, right? Now, more than 2 off seasons ago on Derek Carr, sure, and he is under contract where there's some payment necessary through 2026, but it's not like they just drafted a guy last year or they signed a free agent this year. He is basically a placeholder for new head coach in Kellen Moore, who, of course, is the offensive whiz kid. So you would think he wants to build a new system with a new quarterback for the future. That's not necessarily Derek Carr at this stage of his career. So New Orleans makes a lot of sense. It depends on how they feel about Shedeur Sanders. Now, Joe, I do have it in a couple of ways. Pittsburgh to be the team to draft Shedeur at 9-1, plus 410. I love where the market is working. And the Pittsburgh Steelers to use their first pick on a quarterback at plus 340. So even if it's not Shedeur Sanders who Pittsburgh gets, I still do think there could be a quarterback like a Jackson Dart or a Tyler Shuck or a Jalen Milroe that might make their way to the Steel City. But I do think it's fascinating, Joe, because we have talked about the Steelers so often because they have been consistently successful. In the 18 years under Mike Tomlin, they really haven't had the opportunity to draft in the top 5 or top 10 to get that quarterback of the future, to bring it all the way down to the studs and build the base up from there. Kenny Pickett, their last first-round quarterback selection in 2022. Prior to that, it was Ben Roethlisberger a very long time ago in 2004. So I do think Pittsburgh is trying to angle for a quarterback. Of course, there is still Aaron Rodgers looming out there someplace. Who knows exactly? But I do think the Steelers are going to be aggressive in targeting a QB in 2 weeks from now on that opening night of the 2025 draft.
Yeah, they have to, Ben. I know Mason Rudolph, they say they're confident in because he knows the scheme and he knows the talent. That's all well and good, but he couldn't elevate Tennessee when he was in there, with mediocre talent around them. And he's not going to move the needle against the likes of Lamar and Joe Burrow in the conference, in the division, right? So you need to really hit the ground running this year. It's a shame that Pittsburgh allowed themselves to be put into this situation in terms of the quarterback revolving door when they had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson there. They're in a similar situation to what the Giants are in. But they should have seen this and really set themselves up accordingly. Now, maybe their eggs are in one basket in Aaron Rodgers, and they're willing to potentially take another shot on Jackson Dart or Shedeur if they're there. But to not really have a game plan about who the starter is this year, I'm shocked that this organization allowed it to get as late. We're in April, and we still don't know who the Steelers quarterback is.
Correct. And that is a very dangerous game, Joe. A very dangerous game, which I think if you took a peek behind the curtain might explain what Pittsburgh is looking to do here in the 2025 NFL Draft. Again, even if it's Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be in the same situation next year, right? Hoping to get a quarterback. And if you're investing in Aaron Rodgers, you think he can lead you to another winning season, which, of course, has been the staple of these Mike Tomlin Steelers teams. At least that's how I see it. So why not use this opportunity to go after a quarterback. Now, this is not an overly rich quarterback class, as we will share in our next segment. Joe, we thought it really was just 2 first-round worthy quarterback nods. Cam Ward, who is going to go first overall, and Shedeur Sanders. Is Shedeur Sanders a top 5, a top 10, a top 20, a first-round pick? That's what we are debating now, when it seemed like he would be a surefire top 5 selection at the end of this college football or NFL season. We'll talk about the other quarterbacks in just a moment. But, Joe, just twice in the last 10 NFL drafts have we seen 2 quarterbacks or fewer taken in the opening round. 2015, when it was 1-2, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. And the last time the Steelers drafted a quarterback in round number 1, Kenny Pickett, back in 2022 at 20th overall. Pickett was the only QB taken in that opening round.
Yeah, again, how many will go? We know of 2. Will Jackson Dart be 3? I still think they make it 2.5, Ben. But again, we're hearing Milroe, we're hearing Dart. Where are they going? There might be, quarterbacks that are available, but are all these teams from 21 outside the Steelers straight down to 32? There's only one potential team that needs a quarterback, and that's the LA Rams. Are they going to pull the trigger on a backup for Matt Stafford now when they could get him in the 2nd or 3rd round?
That's a great question, Joe, and that's what we'll look at on the other side of the break, because I do think we're just a few days away from a market opening up that we have talked about often without actual odds. Over-under amount of QBs taken in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. I think the number is 2.5. I think the under should have the juice, but will it? And if it does not, where might that 3rd or 4th quarterback go? We'll talk about it next.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie. Just saying. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. On Wednesday, President Trump announced a 90-day pause on most of his new tariffs and a lowering of the reciprocal tariff rate to 10% effective immediately. The president, however, said he is increasing the tariff rate on goods imported from China to 125%. Microsoft said it is slowing or pausing some of its data center construction. This includes a $1 billion project in Ohio. The tech giant confirmed that it is halting early-stage projects on rural land it owns in central Ohio's Licking County outside of Columbus and will reserve 2 of the 3 sites for farmland. 4 people were charged in connection with a shooting that killed 3 people and wounded 3 others in Virginia. Spotsylvania authorities say in a statement that all 4 suspects, 2 16-year-olds, a 17-year-old, and an 18-year-old, were charged with malicious wounding and felony firearm use. 3 of the suspects were arrested Wednesday morning. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Hey, fellow Gen Xers, it's Elizabeth Banks. Big news. The recommended age for pneumococcal pneumonia vaccination has been lowered to 50 and older, even if you're healthy. It's up to us to lead the charge. After all, we gave the world the internet. We're trailblazers. Let's lead the way again, because we are at over 6 times greater risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Gen X, this is our shot. Head to vaxassist.com and schedule today. That's vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very
calm. I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
2 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft, our first round on the opening night in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Pittsburgh Steelers on this Thursday hosting quarterback prospect in Shedeur Sanders. Joe, we're talking about the overall amount of quarterbacks we could see go in the opening round. It really feels like it could just be 2. Cam Ward first overall, and wherever and whomever draft Shedeur Sanders in the opening round. But could we see 3? Again, just twice. In the last 10 NFL drafts, have we seen two or fewer quarterbacks go in the first round? 2015 and as recently as 2022. Last year set a record. 6 quarterbacks, all taking in the first 12 picks. Lazy guy, 2.5, I think is what the over-under is going to open as for the amount of total quarterbacks taken in the first round. I think the under should have the juice. I think it should only be 2. What do you think that number is going to be? And eventually, which side of the over or under is going to win out?
I think it'll be 2.5 as well. And I think part of it is forget the talent. It's the team needs, right? We've seen a bunch of quarterbacks go in the last couple of years in the first round, and those quarterbacks are potentially set for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and teams are set. So the only teams that really are quarterback needy for the most part are in the top 5, which we have Cleveland and New York, and we see the market move against them for the quarterbacks. And then 2 others, Pittsburgh and New Orleans, and everybody else is a coin flip. So when you look at that and you say, okay, based off team need, I would say it's 2.5. And again, the outlier may be Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, to your point, but who's going to reach up and grab them if nobody else is? Why would you waste a first-round selection on these guys? So I think it's 2.5. I think the under, Ben, I think it's heavy. I think it's maybe minus 172 in that area to the under. I really do. And you take a shot on plus money to the over. I will say this, whatever the running back market is, I'm taking a shot on the over there because I do, outside of Ashton Genty and potentially Amarion Hampton that has been linked to the first round, I think we can potentially have 4 running backs taken in terms of the first 32.
Wow. The Las Vegas Raiders, by the way, now a minus money favorite at minus 145 to be the team that drafts the Heisman runner-up in Ashton Genty. The Raiders draft 6th overall. Lisi, I remember early in the offseason looking at the 2025 NFL draft order and highlighting the 7 teams or so that would have to address a quarterback question this offseason, whether through the draft, a trade, or free agency. Of course, the Tennessee Titans seem as though they are going to do that with Cam Ward. The Browns really haven't outside of Kenny Pickett, and maybe that's all they do this offseason. The Giants have, based on their offseason acquisitions, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. The Raiders trade for Geno Smith. The Jets sign Justin Fields. That's 5 of the 7 teams we highlighted early. The New Orleans Saints would be the 6th. Could it be Shedeur Sanders? They're sticking with Derek Carr at this moment. And then we worked our way down, Joe, to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21st overall. They haven't addressed diddly squat yet. Is it going to be the draft or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Those are basically their only 2 options. So to your point, Joe, if it's going to be Shedeur Sanders at 9th overall, does Pittsburgh stay at 21 in reach on a quarterback? If Pittsburgh works its way up to draft in front of New Orleans and get Shedeur Sanders, would the Saints go there at number 9? More than likely not. Would they be comfortable kicking the can into year number 2 under Kellen Moore and trusting the veteran in Derek Carr for 2025? Perhaps, knowing Spencer Rattler is still on the roster. So, Joe, if we use Pittsburgh as our line of demarcation for the only other team after the top 10 that could even be interested in a quarterback, after the Pittsburgh Steelers, 22 is the Chargers. They're good. They got Justin Herbert. 23 is the Packers. Jordan Love. 24, Minnesota. Probably not going to burn a second number 1 overall pick or a first-round pick. They've got J.J. McCarthy. Houston's got C.J. Stroud. The Rams are interesting. They have Matthew Stafford for now. Would they use a late-round first-round pick? The first time I think the Rams have drafted in the first round in like 8 years, which is crazy, at 26th overall on a quarterback. Baltimore's good. Detroit's good. Commanders good. Buffalo good. KC good. Philadelphia good. Joe, to your point, after Pittsburgh, really after New Orleans, if you include the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Rams are really the only team that you would think would even take a shot or a look at a quarterback in the opening round.
Yeah, and that's what I told you. 14-1 for a quarterback in that position makes sense. right? I mean, and again, would they pull the trigger at number 26 overall? And we know they're in a win now mentality, in terms of the moves that they had made, getting rid of Cooper Kupp and now obviously having Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, you have Puka Nacua. His window's only till he turns 30, right? He wants to retire after that. So you have a limited amount of upside for this team to compete, right? They won the NFC West last year, can't regress. So it's basically pedal to the metal. What's the best player from an offense or a defensive perspective that puts this team in a position to compete for an NFC championship? Is that backup quarterback? I don't think so, right? So again, if you're making that bet though for LA, I still think it's worth the value at 14-1. But realistically, they're not potentially going to take a quarterback. And that's why some of these guys might fall to the second or third round bet.
Yeah, I would agree, Joe. And again, if the Rams, who drafted in the first round last year, selecting Jared Verse, that was their first time in the first round since 2016. If the Rams are going to use that first round pick, to your point, they're in a win now mode. They don't need that backup potential quarterback that maybe they hit on something in 2 to 3 years to be that future face of the franchise in the first round. They could use their second or third round pick to maybe develop one of those guys as well. Shout out our guy, Scott B., Cheesy Scott, who is a big fan of the SportsGrid network. He's tweeting at us, Joe, saying, I believe the Steelers draft Jackson Dart at number 21. I would if I was them. Dart doesn't get or shouldn't get out of the first round. Now, that would make some sense, right? The Saints draft Shedeur Sanders 9th overall. The Steelers, who have hosted Jackson Dart on a top 30 visit, could that be their move if they are set on a quarterback? We'll continue to discuss on the other side of the break, live right here on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So, Joe, let's play out this world as well, courtesy of our man Scott B., who is listening to the show on Football Full Circle, that maybe Shedeur Sanders goes to the team that the odds makers right now think is the most likely to select him. That would be the New Orleans Saints, who have the 9th overall pick at a plus 270 price. What would that mean then for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Again, they have not really addressed any quarterback question this offseason, unless you call the regrouping with Mason Rudolph that. I don't think Pittsburgh Steelers fans would be happy if that is the only QB move made by the Steelers. Are they still waiting on Aaron Rodgers? I guess that remains to be seen. Lisa, guy, I told you earlier in the show that I have bet on the team to draft Shedeur Sanders being the Pittsburgh Steelers. Opened at 17-1. I got it at 9-1 now 2 weekends ago. It's plus 410. The team with the second best price behind the Saints at plus 270. But let's just say the Pittsburgh Steelers do not get Shedeur Sanders. Would they still go QB? Position of Pittsburgh Steelers, first drafted player. So not the guy, but the position. The Steelers use that 21st overall pick on D lineman, plus 220, shortest price. Quarterback, second best number at plus 340. If Pittsburgh is still wanting and waiting for a quarterback, Joe, at 21st overall, but neither Cam Ward, of course, nor Shedeur Sanders are on the board, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers pull trigger on a quarterback.
No, if it's not Shedeur, I don't think it is. But if you're asking me at 21, is it Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe? I think they have a better shot at Milroe than they do with Jackson Dart. And again, they both have upside and they both have negatives. The negative with Jackson Dart is, one, I worry about, cold weather. I also worry for both of those guys, right? Jalen and Jackson Dart playing in the Southeast, but I also worry about Jackson Dart never stepping up against elite defenses in the SEC. That's a problem. Jalen at least has big performances in big games. Where's Jackson Dart's performance when the chips are in the middle of the table, right? So it's a crapshoot right now, Ben. They are in a position, Pittsburgh, where they have to get it right. Getting it right, for the most part, would be Shedeur Sanders. How do you position yourself to get him? You can't stay at 21 and hope that the quarterback falls and then you get the best of what's left. You have to take it to your right. You have to be aggressive. Pull the trigger and get into the top 5. But what do you give up in terms of that? That's the problem. Like, are you giving up 3 number ones? Are you giving up, Cam Hayward or TJ Watt? What are you giving up to get into the top 5?
It'll be interesting to see what that trade partner is as well. The Patriots don't really need to do much at 4th overall. The Jaguars are drafting 5th overall. Are they willing to move back to get some more draft capital and assets to allow a team like the Steelers to move up past the New Orleans Saints? 6th overall is the Raiders. 7th is the New York Jets. 8th overall right now in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers. All of those teams in front of New Orleans. I'm sure the Panthers would love to trade with the Steelers to not even allow the potential of New Orleans striking it big on a potential future franchise quarterback in Shedeur. Now, Jackson Dart hosted on a visit by the Steelers. Tyler Shuck hosted on a visit by Pittsburgh. Next week, we expect Kyle McCord to go to the Steel City as well. They have not hosted Jalen Milroe, but what stands out to me, Joe, Jalen Milroe has accepted an invite to the 2025 NFL Draft. And I think both players and the league are very, very cautious about having a guy there just to have him on camera all night long for him not to go in the first round. Now, I do not believe that Jalen Milroe is a worthy first-round quarterback, but that was a very interesting move as reported over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did he take the invite if he's not going to be selected, right? That's just crazy to think about. Are they pushing the envelope potentially? He's a dynamic talent, much in the area of AR and Joe Milton in back-to-back years. He's a dynamic X factor. If you can channel that, we'll see what team takes a shot. I'll just say this about Kyle McCord. If you're Pittsburgh, I ain't entertaining that. Last time he played in Pittsburgh Stadium, he threw 5 picks. How many for pick sixes against the Panthers? 5? 3? 4? What was it? They got abused. 31-0 in the first half.
Find a new slant. He threw 3 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah.
All of them just happen to be to the Panthers. Still finds a way for the end zone, that Kyle McCord, though. I'll tell you that much. He's Joe Lisi. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle returns tomorrow on a Football Friday, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge